LePage Locarno Beach Triathlon is brought to you by Royal LePage. We guarantee our service in writing. And by Reckless Riders Cyclery. Our competition is behind us all the way. It's called the Agony and the Ecstasy, the Royal LePage Locarno Beach Triathlon. We're expecting a great race. Now, one of the favorites a couple of months ago would have been Steve McMurdo. He had that tragic training accident, but it's our gain. He'll be providing analysis this morning. Steve, first of all, how you feeling?
Not bad. We'll see how it goes.
Favorites, first with the men.
Richard Wells, Simon Cassidy, Frank Clark, and Paul White.
Ladies?
Carol Montgomery, Kenna Morrison, and a dark horse, Karen Rainey.
Okay, I know why the pros are competing. They're competing for money, the love of the sport. What about these amateurs? Why do they put themselves through all this pain, torture, agony, and a little bit of ecstasy as well?
Well, I think that the ecstasy is probably what stands out the most. These people are confronted with a challenge, and they accept it. And in the process, they become fit from head to toe, and race day is a way to measure their progress and get together with their friends and bash it out. And I think they get a lot from it, and I don't think many people second guess why they're doing it.
And it's fitting that the largest real estate company in the country is sponsoring this event, because these athletes will be swimming too, running over and cycling on some of the most expensive real estate in the country. Should be a great race. And of course, we'll begin with the swimming portion of the race, Steve. And unlike last year when you finished second in the men's competition, the weather is not a problem. The sun is shining, it's warm, just a great day for it.
Yeah, beautiful day for the race today. No rain in the sky, and it should be a safe, quick, exciting race today.
See most competitors sporting the wetsuit. Now, hypothermia was a problem with a number of swimmers during last year's competition. That should not be a problem this year.
No, I wouldn't anticipate any people having to get fished out of the water today, even those that decide to not wear a wetsuit today.
And you take a look at the course, the triangular swim, 1.5 kilometers. Your thoughts on it?
The most interesting aspect of the start of the swim today should be the start. The water is quite shallow, and many of the athletes will dolphin through the first 100 meters or so of the water as they jostle to find position.
Anybody who's ever been at Locarno Beach or Spanish Banks knows all about the shallow water area. You'll see an example of the dolphining. It's a situation, I guess, where is there a technique that you can use to perfect that kind of thing?
Yeah, you'll want to arc your body over the water, dive in, take about 2 or 3 strides, and then explode up again and arc over. The swimmers that are accustomed to surf should have an advantage early on in the swim today. I think we're about ready for the start here.
And who would we expect to jump out to the early lead?
Probably Richard Wells and Simon Cassidy should jump out to the early lead. There's a lot of contact here early on in the swim, particularly if you line up in the middle, and you've got to keep your wits about you out there and stay cool. That's Frank Clark on the far right. He prefers to start on his own rather than get beat up lining for position. He'll angle into the bunch later on in the swim.
How much of a factor over the course of a race will the swimming portion play? Is this like 33%, 1/3, or is it more or less?
I'd say that that's a fair estimate of the significance of the swim. Of course, each race is different, but the swim is vital in that it'll align who's going to have an advantage at the beginning of the bike and ultimately the run segment. There's the front pack of swimmers just starting to swim away there, and as I mentioned before, a lot of contact early on in the swim. One doesn't think that a sport like this is contact, but it is.
And the leaders begin to separate themselves, and as we thought, Richard Wells from New Zealand, the former world champion, has jumped out to an early lead, and he's followed very closely, however, and the women back on the beach are just about set for the start of their race, 3 minutes back of the men.
Yes, there's wave starts in the triathlon given the number of competitors that are in the race. The women are just about to go off here. At 3 minutes, the lead female swimmers will swim through some of the slower swimmers in the men first wave.
Bit of a hardship on their part to have to fight through that kind of thing.
To some degree, but given the number of competitors, it's unavoidable. The waves have to be sent off at an interval that's close enough to allow the race to take place on city streets.
And from the women's viewpoint, who would we expect to take the early lead here?
I think that Tracy Mitchell, who's an extremely strong swimmer, should go to the front during the swim segment.
And someone near and dear to your heart, of course.
Yes, Tracy and I have been together for a couple of years now, and
not just training, but
No, not just training, but this is a triathlon show.
Right you are, Steve. That's one fit fiance you have in your hands, but she's currently the leader, and they're beginning to fall into place now, fall into a single line. Now, is that the kind of thing we can expect?
Yes, at the start of the swim, everyone's going to go full out for the first 200 or 300 meters, and then they'll fall in on each other in behind to draft. It's a lot less energy if you sit right on the person in front of you. As you'll see here, they're in a line rather than being 10 wide. And Richard Wells there is doing all the work at the front, but that's to be expected. He's the strongest swimmer in the field and will want to put as much time into the rest of the field as he possibly can.
Now, let's talk about that strong swimmer. You bet he is. He's almost good enough, may perhaps swim for New Zealand in the Commonwealth Games.
Yes, he very well may do that, a double, as I'm sure he'll represent New Zealand in the triathlon segment of the Commonwealth Games. He currently holds the 100-meter short course record for New Zealand.
And so these guys are sticking with him, and I would think swimming a pretty fair race under those circumstances.
Yes, I'm surprised how many swimmers. There's about 10 people within 15 seconds of Richard at this point in the swim. Some excellent swim times are going to be turned today.
And is this a case, much as we'll see later in the cycling portion of the competition, where you can sit in behind somebody, draft, and maybe make your swim just a little bit easier?
Well, you can sit in at a much closer distance here. There's no rule against drafting in the water. You can swim and actually tickle the person's feet in front of you. Whereas in the bike segment, you've got to remain at least 2 bike lengths behind the person in front of you, or you risk disqualification.
Is that part of the strategy, tickling the feet of the person in front of you?
If you want to irritate them, I suppose it could be part of the strategy. You want to stay as close as you possibly can. This fellow here is really close to Richard at this point.
Very strong stroke by Richard Wells. You can see the type of background that he does in fact have, and a big race. Richard Wells, the leader, the former world champion from New Zealand, back with more right after
that dedication. Each agent is committed to ongoing training and to providing you the very best service we guarantee in writing. It's that competitive edge that helps you come out ahead every time. Put knowledge, training, and commitment on your side with Royal LePage.
We're back at the Royal LePage Locarno Beach Triathlon. Richard Wells, the former world champion from New Zealand, continues to lead as he takes the final turn and makes his way home.
Yes, Richard's having his characteristically strong swim here. I'm surprised at how many athletes are within 15 or 20 seconds of Richard. There's a front pack of about 8 athletes there.
This is absolutely no surprise. We've spoken before about the fact that Wells, a very strong, respected swimmer, a former world champion, and he's coming up to the very shallow water at Spanish Banks, and we'll see more of the dolphining that we saw earlier.
He'll give a couple of quick dolphins to get through the last 10 meters of the water, and he's out. You'll see how muscular Richard is. For a triathlete, he's extremely big and quite a favorite with the ladies, I understand.
Disadvantage? Not with the ladies, but I mean in terms of being big. Is that an advantage or disadvantage?
It can be a disadvantage in the running segment of the race, but Richard has cut some really quick run times in the past, so I'm sure he's pretty content with his physique.
And of course the transition area coming up, a crucial part of the race.
Yeah, extremely. He can put as much time into his competitors in transition as he put in them in the swim, or by the same token, he can lose it. Peter Schmidt coming out of the water there.
And of course, David Schmidt was the second man out of the water. He's from Vernon, followed by Dave Kirk of Kelowna, but all within 30-40 seconds of the leader, Richard Wells, who hits the transition area first.
Here he comes in. You'll see how quickly he gets his wetsuit off. He's a little obscured by the bikes there. And a good transition time is about 30 seconds where you'll change out of your wetsuit, put your helmet on, grab your bike, and run out of the transition area.
Vital portion of the race, Steve. You can win or lose in this area. As you can see, the transition area, the start of the cycling competition, they'll work their way around 40 kilometers. It's a 2 times around the track, and good race, or good course, tough course?
It's a fairly challenging course. You've got to go out Spanish Banks a couple of times, and I would expect the winning bike split today to be in around 56 minutes, averaging 27 miles an hour. Dave Kirk just leaving the transition area there.
You can see those special handlebars that are designed specifically for the triathletes, because after you've jumped out of the water, you're going to want to maybe rest a little bit, and hence the need for those handlebars?
Well, those handlebars are actually designed for aerodynamics. Initially developed by Boone Lennon, who was a downhill skier and a cycle racer. It puts you in an aerodynamic tuck position, and it will definitely be the way of the future.
Same
for time
situation
trialing.
with the back wheel?
Yes, they've been around a little while longer. The disc wheel does not create as much air turbulence as a spoked wheel, which has an egg beater effect. And between the two of them, you'll see some boys going up to 30 miles an hour today, average speed.
And you can see just how small that lead Richard Wells has. Meanwhile, back in the water, the leader is your fiancée, Tracy Mitchell.
Yes, Tracy had a great swim, and she's coming out of the water there quite aggressively. I would expect her to have a bit of a tough time maintaining that lead, given that she's had some injury problems. She's the second girl out of the water. I believe that's Corey Lyons.
No surprise here with the first two out?
Well, no surprise that Tracy's come out. She's got a couple minutes on the rest of the field.
But holding that, I think she's had a few problems, injuries in training, and it will be very difficult for her to hold. So should be a real race with the ladies as it wears on. Meanwhile, the men, well, Richard Wells has that lead when last we saw him in the cycling portion of this competition. It's a 40K race, and we see as the women come out of the water, Steve, they begin to make that transition even before they hit the transition area.
Yes, you'll want to get your wetsuit, as much of your wetsuit off as you can before you get to the bike. A second saved is a second earned, so to speak. Here's the lead woman out on the bike, Tracy Mitchell. You'll note that she has only got 1 foot in the cycling shoe at this point, and she'll try and get up to about 20 miles an hour before she puts her right foot into the shoe.
Another case of every second counts?
Every second counts. Yes, a strong transition can save you 30 seconds.
Now, this is a mid-pack competitor we're taking a look at here. She's not expected to be one of the leaders in the competition, and she's not quite as concerned with time in the transition area. She's more concerned with
comfort. The emphasis here is comfort and having a pleasant day. Not everyone is going to scrimp here and scratch there to save 30 seconds or 15 seconds, but she's putting her helmet on there. It's a mandatory piece of equipment in triathlon. It has to be done up before you leave the transition area or you risk disqualification.
And I think something that you'd recommend that everyone use anytime they're on a bike.
Oh, definitely. I'm here to, I can attest to that by the fact that I'm here today. As she calmly walks out of the transition area.
One of the problems you're going to encounter in an event like this or any strictly a cycling competition, flat tires. You have to be prepared for it.
Yes, this triathlon is an individual sport, and unauthorized aid is not allowed in the form of mechanical assistance. This fellow has appeared to have suffered a puncture, and perhaps he doesn't have a spare, and he's out of the race for the day.
And his day is over. And out on the course, Tracy Mitchell continues to lead, but she appears to be maybe tiring just a bit, Steve.
Well, it's early on in the ride, so I wouldn't expect that she's tiring, but she is climbing Spanish banks here, and it's a difficult hill.
And Richard Wells looking strong.
Very strong on the bike. Richard has outsplit many a field on the bike in races in the past.
And yet he's being challenged. He has led right from the start to this point in time, and it looks like we've got a real run for top spot.
Yes, this is Dave Kirk from Kelowna, just coming up and assuming the lead here. I think he started the bike about 15 seconds back of Richard. It's early. We're only at 3 or 4K into the ride here, so anything can happen.
Wells looked maybe a little bit surprised. He came out of nowhere. He didn't maybe see that coming, I would think.
Well, yes, he's probably surprised that Dave's riding as aggressively as he is at this point, but it's a long ways from over, and Richard's not the sort of athlete that's going to get flustered too easily.
But he doesn't, at the same time, he doesn't want to let him get too far in front of him.
Oh, no, certainly not. I'd be surprised if Dave will be able to ride away from Richard today. We'll have to wait and see.
So it's basically a two-man race for the men's competition right now, and Richard Wells is making a move right now, even as we speak. A short-lived lead, it would appear, as Richard Wells is really pouring it on at this point in time.
Yes, Dave perhaps overextended himself early on there climbing the hill, and it might have been better for him to have sat in behind Richard and let Richard set the pace early. He came over him, and now Richard seems to be saying, not today, sir.
And as good as Kirk must have felt taking that lead, psychologically a big blow now, because Richard Wells has blown by him and he's starting to put some distance between himself and Kirk.
Yes, Richard's looking extremely aerodynamic and strong on the bike, and I would expect him to not look back from here on. David could very easily have a great ride today. He's got a lot of talent, and he's still in the picture there. We'll have to wait and see how
he's making an effort, but you can see the difference, I think, in the movement. Wells looks so strong.
Yes, and also Richard's been riding the tangents slightly better than Dave, who seems to be staying over on one side of the road, whereas Richard's using the entire road to cut the corners.
All those little things, cutting corners, can mean the difference between winning and losing.
Certainly, you'll see right here as he shifts into the left-hand bend, he goes right by the yellow line. I don't believe that he's allowed to cross the yellow line. Here in the women's race, Tracy Mitchell still leading and riding strongly. She's battled a few injury problems in the last year, and I'm sure today her main emphasis is going to be on completing the race and finishing it strongly.
That would be an accomplishment for her?
Well, yes, when you've been injured, the main thing you want to do is just come back and be able to race well into the finish line.
Is that a case then mentally of overcoming maybe the barrier, the handicap of being injured?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Terry Smith-Ross, she was 4th out of the water, and she is in the top 4 still through the cycling competition to this point in time.
Yeah, she's riding very well here. I think we have a move in the women's segment here. Sue Schlater, who is a national level cyclist from Quebec, making a move in the women's segment. You'll note here that Sue is not using the handlebars, which it's an interesting tactic on her part. I wouldn't be surprised if next season we'll see her on the bars, but an extremely strong cyclist.
And Carol Montgomery, who was in the top 6 coming out of the water, she's starting to make her move in the cycling portion of this competition, and if she's anywhere near the top when they hit the running portion, it should be Carol Montgomery's race.
Certainly, Carol does not need to get to the lead in order to win this race at the end of the bike. She can come off probably almost a minute down and run down her competition.
And yet she still looks strong cycling.
Oh, certainly. I'm not trying to infer that she cannot ride. She's an excellent rider, but she's an incredibly good runner.
Meanwhile, back with the men, there's been absolutely no change in front. Richard Wells, the former world champion from New Zealand, makes the turn at the 10K mark. In great position, he's fresh, he's strong, and he's out in front. He's number 1.
Richard's looking extremely good on the bike. He must have been pleased with the margin that he saw at the first turnaround. Simon Cassidy, I believe currently in 2nd place on the bike. Local Vancouver athlete, extremely strong swimmer, good on the bike, and is actually quite a good runner as well. I would expect good things from Simon today.
And Simon Cassidy, of course, the overall series leader in the Royal LePage circuit at this point in time. He's trailing Richard Wells, former world champion. Got an excellent race shaping up. The run still to come. We'll be back with much more from the Royal LePage Locarno Beach Triathlon right after this. Royal LePage Locarno Beach Triathlon. Richard Wells continues to lead. I'm Barry Houlihan. Joining me this afternoon, Steve McMurdo from Vancouver. And Steve, Richard Wells is making time through the pack.
Yes, this is a 2-lap bike course, and so Richard is now lapping the cyclists that are on their first lap, and you can see the pace with which he's moving relative to these other equally fine competitors.
And the women, things fairly well bunched there.
Yes, I don't see any infraction of the drafting rule there. That's Sue Schlater, currently in the lead in the women's, coming out of the last turnaround.
Right on her tail, Kendall Morrison and Carol Montgomery.
Yes, it's going to be a tight race in the women off the bike. I think we'll see 3 or 4 women within 30 seconds of each other. Here leading on the bike is Sue Schlater. She's got an extremely fluid pedaling motion there. She's a national level cyclist and looking strong.
And she had a chance to reply to our cameraman's question, how's it going out there? She says it's going okay. And the same situation for Richard Wells. He's looking very strong at this point.
Yes, Richard's coming in with a sizable margin on 2nd place, who I believe is Simon Cassidy at this point in the race. Richard is an extremely relaxed athlete when he races as well as when he trains. And you'll see him come in here and look very, very fluid and calm while he makes his transition. Has a glance behind there to see if anyone's right on his tail.
No wasted energy. World champion 2 years ago. How would his status worldwide compare with that now?
It's hard really to say. The World Championships will take place in a couple of weeks, and I would expect Richard to finish in the top 5, although only time will tell on that score.
And he's a strong runner, but this is not his forte, shall we say. He will be expected, I would think, to maybe lose a few seconds over this portion of the race to some of the others. Simon Cassidy now making his way into the transition area, and he is 1 minute and 29 seconds back of Richard Wells. As we take a look at the running portion of the race, Steve, your thoughts on that?
Well, this is a 2-lap run course, so on the 2nd lap of the run, the lead competitors will not be able to see the people that they're chasing down. Their view will be obscured by other athletes on their first lap.
And Cassidy wasted no time getting into and out of the transition area. Meanwhile, back in the cycling competition, Sue Schlater still out on top.
Yeah, she's coming in here at the end of the ride. I believe that Kendall Morrison from Vancouver is beginning to make a move on her, and the two of them are going to, yes, that's Kendall there in the background.
Sue Schlater, who's first at this point in time, but not by a heck of a lot.
No, I would expect Sue to have a hard time holding on her lead. Here's Carol Montgomery, who's quite close to these leading two women, I think only 15 or 20 seconds back. I would expect her to be able to run up and through the two girls. Sue leaving transition and Kendall Morrison hot on her heels there.
And Carol Montgomery not very far behind those two. We said earlier, if Montgomery's even close, and there she is, she's in the transition area, this should be her race.
Yes, we'll have to wait and see, but I would expect her to run these two girls down. She's extremely relaxed in the run. She ran 34 flat at the Vancouver Sun Run for 10K fresh, which is an incredible time for a female triathlete.
Okay, the final portion coming up, the 10K race. We'll be back with that and much more after this short timeout. Stay with us.
For the triathlon competitor, race day is the culmination of a dream, of months of intense training and commitment. At Royal LePage, our real estate professionals understand that dedication. Each agent is committed to ongoing training and to providing you the very best service we guarantee in writing. It's that competitive edge that helps you come out ahead every time. Put knowledge, training, and commitment on your side with Royal LePage.